So here we are in Shanghai Trader. This is the beginning of the third year. They started calculating revenue, and the United States pulled $20,000. Japan, because they got hosed so badly, only has one trading post, $10,000. The rest of their stuff, it doesn't matter, because these only matter if you have a pyramid in place. So they got really kind of seriously hosed over by the simple expedient of removing one of their coolies that they required. Okay, let's look at the Germans. We're looking at 1, 2, 3 of these. 2 of them go into a pyramid, so that's an unserviced, so $40,000. That's not too bad. But for the Russians, they have a serviced warehouse pyramid. They don't have a factory. The only person who got a factory was the Japanese. So a serviced warehouse is worth 50, and then they go up to 60. And they're doing quite well. But you can see, if you've got a fragile economic engine or whatever, and you look like you're in the lead, you are going to get cut apart. We've got 3 here for the Brits, plus a warehouse that's unserviced. Flip these up. So that's 40,000 for the Brits. And then we have the French, who have a serviced triad that's 50,000 for them. Right? Yeah. And that's the quick cash out there. Initiative, I count pieces. And Japan has 1, 2. This is kind of hard. Japan has 1, 2, 3, I count. Doesn't seem like much. The French have 1, 2, 3, 4, so they'll be going ahead. The US has 1, 2. The Russians 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that puts them ahead of everyone else I've counted so far. The Germans are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the Brits are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So we'll randomize on those and get them in place. And then doing collusion, I'm going to have to think about this. It may affect some things before I go back and roll the die on the shipping table. So the only thing that really happened in the collusion, the Russians agreed to pay $5,000 to get some Japanese dock guards. But now we make the shipping roll. Nobody has the shipping company, so there's nothing to control there. The roll is a 3, which means we're going to have a boat in the spring and a boat in the summer, and those will be at the main 3 and 4 wharfs, which kind of, again, cuts the Germans out. They're wishing they hadn't jumped into what seemed like the bonus dock, but isn't. Okay. And at this point, we're in the winter phase, and there is no ship that comes in on this roll. So we go to the gala performance. Well, nobody owns the nightclub, so that doesn't happen, and we go to movement. So people have been piddling around, and the Japanese were in such bad shape they went to the banks, deposited their $5,000. Now they don't have enough money for the races, so they had to sell off one of their factories. Well, their factory. They put it up for a highest bid, and I think it went for $80,000 to the Russians. The Russians pay them in cash. Now they have the money to play in the ponies, as does everyone else. Why would you buy something for $80,000 that only costs $50,000? Well, because you don't have to roll to move, right? So there was an auctioning going off with basically the three people with a decent amount of money involved in it, and it went for a decent amount of money. All right, on to the races. Okay, so here we are at the end of the autumn turn. Let me just explain what happened as we go into the fourth year. Well, after what we saw both Japan and France trying to get another warehouse, another factory, or a factory. This still seems like the best plays. 1 through 3, they succeed. Over here, 4 or 5 succeeds. The airfield isn't that bad. You could have paid penalty to get there. They probably should have gone for that, especially the French who had cash. We didn't see a lot of violence go on. The United States was the only player who tried to, and they ended up in the opium dens and chose not to pay the fine. So every turn now they have to roll. On a 1 through 3, they can actually move. Otherwise, they're just doped up out of their mind. The customs inspector has refused to cut a deal. He wants to hose the British, basically. Which isn't too big a thing. I mean, they didn't have a factory. We have two people who have factories, the Russians and the Americans, and they're going to gain a lot of advantage there. I forgot to put a little marker here. The English took the Shanghai Club, which is going to give them the policemen, and they can patrol their important districts now and prevent thugs from driving their coolies off. That's a very powerful advantage. They have an additional one, which they could sell during the collusion phase, as it were. All right, well, I'm going to go to bed, but then we're going to, when I wake up, we can start hitting this fourth year. Okay, so here we are at the beginning, the cycle turn for the fourth year. And I grabbed the revenues for everyone and did the initiative. Some people pulled some pretty big money, including the United States, which, you know, only has 2 guys, but they had a serviced warehouse and they had managed to buy a factory. So they got into the big boy money line. Of course, the agent there is still smoking dope or whatever. Some of the others, the French pulled in good money, I believe. The Russians, of course. Oh no, the French didn't pull in that much. 60. The Russians pulled in over 100. The English got hosed because of the inspector. So during collusion, the English paid, I believe, $15,000 to get the Japanese to place their guards on their warehouse. They couldn't get anyone to agree to pay anything for police protection, so they set up protection in their own 2 areas and over in the Bund, which makes things a little bit safer. You won't get mugged there for whatever that's worth as easily. It's kind of surprising Russia didn't agree to pay, but England was asking a high price for their protection, something like $30,000, and they just didn't want to pay that. They would have taken a lot less to protect something else. Okay, so I think that's it with collusion. Japan was looking to try to trade their guards for an additional trading post, because that's what's holding them back. They're going to have to try to guilt them somewhere. Okay, and I guess we go to the shipping phase. Nobody owns the shipping company, so it's still kind of random. And it's always random how many ships come in, but where they come in is going to be random. We get a 4, which means we'll be getting 1, and presumably 1 in each dock area over the course of the year. That makes it less competitive over, say, docks 3 and 4. All right. What's next? Next we have the event for the winter, and that's going to be the gala performance. Still nobody owns the nightclub. The British still haven't grabbed it. They went with the police instead. So, once again, they don't get that. And then we'll go to movement. Okay, and moving along into the summer. Let me see what happened in the winter, spring, whatever. So the Americans were stuck in the opium dens for one turn, but then they came out, still unable to get anything. And one of the problems with the game is you don't necessarily get to where you want to be. The Japanese, on their hand, however, did manage to capture another trading post. So now they're going to be able to service, well, to build triangles, or pyramids. And they can also grab the Buddhist monastery, which is kind of cool. Gives them some protection and some extra income. The Germans tried to knock the Russians out of here. They failed at that. They don't have enough cash to build a factory, which is what they really need. The English grabbed a warehouse up here, which is going to be serviced shortly. And then they're going to try to figure out where they want to get a warehouse, a factory. And, you know, they're still ignoring the nightclub. It's a cool extra thing, but as we get later and later in the game, money seems much more important than these little, you know. So the nightclub will bring some cash in, but probably not, I think, at the same level, especially since it's a deal-cutting type thing. Probably not at the same level as some of the other special events. It seems to me that the French Club is one of the best. It's just the, hey, you're giving me $50,000. That's it's targeted. It's really destructive. Let's look at the French. They kind of they spent $30,000 on cheap wine and women. Okay. So anyway, go on, and it's going to be the Bastille Day Bash, where the French get to target someone, basically. Well, things are heating up and getting a little nastier. We just finished the summer turn. The French used the Bastille Day Bash to target the Russian player, grabbing $50,000 out of his hand. Then on the French turn, with all that money ill-gotten, they're trying to get to the imperial trading banks. They can't automatically move to the currency trader because nobody owns it. So they want to stash some of their money. Granted, they really want a factory, but they have too much cash on hand to feel safe in the way the world's been going. And, you know, we're seeing the Germans knocked out this coolly. The Russians ended up taking it back. What else? People have been considering muggings. It's become a much more violent game so far. Now we're coming to the last turn. The Germans are going to have to use their custom inspector here to try and they probably want to limit. The British are the scariest at this point, but the British have one factory. If they're able to service both of these and get another factory, they would be the definite target. If, on the other hand, they can't get another factory, there's no real reason to target either of their, well, this one, because they've still got this one. It would be a much lesser blow to them than, say, hitting the Russian one, which is unprotected. anyway, move forward, see what happens. We got the races, which is some extra cash for the Russians at least. Okay, so that's ending the fourth turn. I'm going into the fifth cycle. And position-wise, the English were stuck trying to, they had that scandal. They cleared it now. The Germans played the customs inspector on the Russians. It was successful. The Russians paid him $30,000 to take it off. That gives the Germans more money than the Russians are going to make off of. The Russians would make 50,000 additional if that inspector wasn't there, maybe 60, I don't know. But it gave the Germans a lot of money. The Germans are low on the totem pole, though. Their initial start with the customs swindle looked impressive. They have a lot more money than I thought. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have $40,000 more than I thought. And they would not have done what they did. Let me give them 10,000 more. It's not going to affect anybody, but they knocked a French dude off. They would have gone. This is one of the problems with me playing solo. They would have gone for a factory in the airfield area. At the airfield. Okay, they ended up where the French ended up. So they didn't end up spending their money, but they got more of it. Actually, probably ended up worse off because of that. I forgot about the swindle gets 5,000 each time something's serviced. Yeah. I may have missed that another turn too. I know I was doing it before, but when I take a sleep in between in a game, it's hard to remember. Okay, Russians, they're still piddling around trying to get the shipping line. Control of that would be huge. And nobody's managed it. They've been trying all game, as have other people, but nobody managed it. French, trying to build a factory, same as the Germans. The U.S., what the hell did the U.S. do? The U.S. went and bought the Suchow Creek Emporium. That brings them $20,000 a year. Whoop whoop. Probably not worth it for that. But it also counts as a pair of trading posts. Now that's not a huge issue for the U.S., but it does give them a lot of padding, and it seemed like the better move at this moment than the Temple of the Jade Buddha. Temple of the Jade Buddha, though, makes muggings an interesting factor because some percentage of the money goes to the American, or to the owner of that. 50% of the money. That could be a huge amount of money, and it could start making the American the thug type player, going out and whacking people on the streets. So if anybody gets that, protection becomes a lot more valuable too. Normally the money from a mugging just goes back into the bank. And finally the Japanese got out of the opium dens. They had paid a $40,000 fine, and they went and they grabbed the other location on the Temple of the Jade Buddha. So they may be doing that little job too. They don't have a lot of cash though. They spend so much in the opium dens. Alright, this one's done. We'll see the effects cash-wise next turn. We're going to see some heavy money though. The English have a full set. The Americans and Russians both have a full set. And other people, like the Germans, have a double warehouse serviced, which is worth $100,000 as well. So we're seeing a heavy inflow of cash here for a lot of people. Some are definitely falling behind though. And we'll have to see what happens. Nobody's been able to stash a decent amount of money yet. Only the Japanese have put $5,000 in. Which might win the game if they can get out.